Hello dear listeners, Strela AM website continues its program. Today's topic is the new manifestations of the ideology of Pan-Turkism in Turkey. Our guest is Turkologist, historian Mneli Minasyan. When and under what conditions did the manifestations of the ideology of Pan-Turkism begin? Pan-Turkism has not disappeared in the Turkish political system after the Kemalists came to power. However, there are some experts who believe that Kemal distanced himself from Pan-Turkism. This ideology was banned. It's just that a period of transformation of Pan-Turkism begins here, and during this period, especially in the 2030s, can be characterized as a latent, that is, a secret period when these ideologies begin to transform and develop in various spheres. Already in the 40s, that is when the World War started, a great rise of Pan-Turkic ideas was observed, and this shows that during the previous decades, these ideas were not lost anywhere, but existed in the Turkish political state and public systems and were subject to changes. Later, these transformations continue again. I should mention that the most important was the external factor. That is, since the Turkic states were part of the Soviet Union, then Turkey simply did not have an opportunity to establish relations with these countries. And a new opportunity was created for Turkey in 1991 when the Soviet Union collapsed. It was a new opportunity for Turkey to launch a full operation in Turkish countries for the first time. Ağabey. The place of Pan-Turkism programs in the concept of Turkish foreign policy. Minasyan. The activity started in the early 90s and was included in foreign policy programs. The ideas of Pan-Turkism were presented more with the vision of establishing and deepening cooperation with Turkic-speaking countries. Later, the idea of creating a Turkic word was introduced, which was initially presented in a more emotional field, and conditionally because these ideas came from Pan-Turkism, we call it Pan-Turkism. But serious changes are already taking place here in connection with the integration programs, in order to create a common field where there will be common interests, common foreign policy will be developed. Recently, we see more of this in Erdogan's policy, especially when Erdogan was finally convinced that he would not be able to establish relations with the European Union. He even mentioned in one of his speeches that they did not need to establish relations with the European Union. There is a Turkic word. They will try to establish their relations there. The idea of creating a Turkic word became a major foreign policy issue and vision. This implies the formation of a common field as a result of integration programs, where these countries will cooperate on key issues related to state building, military, educational, cultural, and foreign policy harmonization. In other words, the Turkish Union must be similar to today's European Union. And in the same Council of Turkic Cooperation, these departments are allocated. There are bodies connected with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, where the foreign ministers of these countries meet regularly, discuss some issues, though we do not see any serious things yet. There is an economic department, a parliamentary committee, an educational department separately. Here we see structural layers. As a result of all this, in the vision of Turkish foreign policy, the Turkic-speaking countries must unite within a common structure, which is quite a difficult task. While we see that this is mainly spread by Turkey, promoted from a more emotional point of view, the cultural and educational sphere continues to be the basis. Ağabey. The implementation of Pan-Turkism programs is a threat to the territorial integrity of neighboring countries and state security, starting with Central Asia. After all, we know where Turkey's ambitions lead. The Armenians know this. Russia knows that they have reached Crimea. Will there be anyone to oppose these programs? This ideology is beneficial only to Turkey, but it harms the whole region. It harms Russia, but it seems that there is no reference. Do you think it is possible to oppose these programs? Minasyan. Pan-Turkist programs pose a great threat not only to the South Caucasus but also to the Central Asia region. The Crimea was also correctly noted, which Turkey has been speculating very much lately. Even the election results were not recognized and they supported Ukraine in this regard. The first important point is that the ideology of Pan-Turkism has turned into a geopolitical factor. I am sure that this ideology is being propagandized, voiced, and an attempt is being made to implement some part of this not only through the efforts of the Turks. When we say geopolitical, we mean problems related to the world order. First of all, we are talking about changes. After the collapse of the Soviet Union, a part of the previous world order collapsed, so the process of creating a new world order began, at least for our region. Before the Second Artsakh War, a certain status quo was maintained, but then we saw that the balance of power was disturbed, and Erdogan has been talking about the establishment of a new world order for several years, especially during the last year. That is, I consider the activation of the ideology of Pan-Turkism as a transformation into a geopolitical factor, which leads to the formation of the new world order he imagines. In fact, today everyone understands that finally the new world order is in the process of formation. Turkey is trying to have an influence in the new emerging world order in the South Caucasus and Central Asia. In this context, Turkey begins to pursue an active policy which harms the region and other major states because Pan-Turkism has clear targets: Russia, Iran, and China. What steps are these countries taking to counter these ideas? The problem must be considered in several dimensions. First of all, how do those countries view this problem? To what extent does it pose a threat to those countries? After the annexation of Crimea to Russia in 2014, Turkey stated that it did not recognize the annexation, but did not make active anti-Russian statements. But recently, he has openly expressed anti-Russian statements in connection with the Crimea, and Russia is already taking some countermeasures. If before that it was said at the level of the foreign ministry that the so-called Pan-Turkism carries out cultural activities, let it expand. Now Lavrov even mentioned that maybe one day Russia will want to become a member of the Turkish Council. Here we see that they do not realize, or there is no great danger related to the given country yet. And already today, taking into account the recent events, especially the Second Artsakh War, it becomes clear that Turkey not only has a presence in the region, but also has a clear influence in Azerbaijan. It is of military-political nature. The previous two agreements on military-political cooperation that existed before the Sochi Declaration, signed before the war, spoke about military-political cooperation between the two countries, and the Sochi Declaration already speaks about the Turkic world. We already see retaliation from the Russian side here. These are processes that are in the development stage. We will see their results in the near future. As for Central Asia, first of all, Turkey does not have the influence there, which in the South Caucasus, represented by Azerbaijan. Then some of the Central Asian countries are part of separate integration systems. This means that they must get out of those integration systems and go to the integration system promised by Turkey. The two major peacekeepers in the region are Russia and China. Of course, the European Union, the United States, even India, Pakistan, but Central Asia are under the control of those two powers. Naturally, Turkey does not have a common border with those countries. That border must be through Azerbaijan and is bordered through the Maghreb corridor. And it is unlikely that Russia will take such a step. It will protect the Republic of Armenia in order to prevent the opening of such a corridor, to prevent the unification of the Turkic world in practice. On the other hand, Turkey talked about the above-mentioned integration programs, but in order to implement the real process, it requires a lot of investments in all respects, which Turkey does not have at the moment. In terms of communications, Turkey has not reached the level that will allow it to be more attractive for these countries to break with their former integration systems and move towards Turkey. In this regard, I would like to mention a circumstance that refers to the impact. They achieve influence either militarily or economically. When we put the military-economic circumstance side by side, we see that Turkey does not have such achievement in these two spheres in Central Asia. Because militarily, Russia continues to maintain its position here within the CSTO. Recently, we noticed that Russia is making efforts to establish this structure and solve the security problems of the member states. In the past, only Russia solved it, but now they are working so that the structure can solve the problems itself. Here, Turkey's opportunities were limited. Besides, let's not forget that Turkey is not a separate player in terms of structures, but it is also a member of NATO. That is another alliance. It will hardly be able to create an independent military structure for Turkic-speaking countries to join. That is one. Secondly, China has a large economic presence. In the economic sphere, Turkey cannot compete with China in any way. And all kinds of studies suggest that Turkey will also fall under Chinese economic influence in Central Asia and even in Africa, where both sides are investing heavily. In other words, it is true that Pan-Turkism is constantly discussed. It has become a geopolitical factor. Turkey presents certain integration programs. Work is being done in that direction, but the results are not big enough to worry those big states. Otherwise, there will be clearer steps and plans against all this, maybe some alliances. Arababian. Thank you. It was a very interesting conversation. It is necessary to know the enemy well and their plans too.